Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with another character, Herta, for a HSR analysis here. As per usual, a bit more details on certain things like the path and so on and so forth. Things to do with the path are explained in the first video about this, which is Arlan. But for now, let's get into Herta, which is our first Erudition character. And if we reference back to this bad boy, Erudition is a multi-target DPS, essentially summarized down to they only deal AoE damage, multi-target splash damage, all that malarkey. Everyone is hit on the battlefield, essentially, or the enemies, rather, are hit on the battlefield. And she's an ice character, so our first ice character as well, which is great. And honestly, I've pre-read this, and the TLDR is freeze the enemy and then Unga Bunga, because this character is pretty juicy. Now, obviously, the basic attack is single target attack, ice damage, 50%, 100, whatever. The basic attack for all the characters is essentially just going to be single target, so it's kind of irrelevant to talk about it anymore. So, but yeah, single target attack. The skill is deal ice damage equal to a certain percentage of Herta's attack to all enemies. If the enemy's HP is at 50% of their max or higher, damage dealt to this target is increased by 20%, so it kind of makes her a bit more of an opening character. You want to use her at the start of everything, or at least whilst they're above 50%, so you get that 20% damage bonus, which is quite handy. Being an opener, especially if it's open world enemies, which you're encountering a lot, they come in groups of 4 to 5, or in the game mode that has mobs, trash packs, essentially. Moving on to her ultimate, though, it's just you deal a shit ton of damage to all the enemies on the field. That's all it is, right? Deal ice damage of that percentage to all enemies. Straightforward. Her talent, which is quite nifty, when an ally's attack causes an enemy's HP to fall to 50% of their max HP or lower, Herta will launch a follow-up attack. This is very important, though. Bear this in mind as we continue forward. The follow-up attack is crucial, dealing ice damage equal to a certain percentage of Herta's attack to all enemies. Now, I've seen this actually in action, and I've seen some gameplay footage of this. And essentially, to easily understand this part is essentially once the character, sorry, not the character, I beg my pardon, once the enemy is below 50%, any attack thereafter by an ally causes her to do this follow-up attack. So it's not just the instance of reducing them below 50, but it's any attack subsequently after they are below 50% will cause this follow-up attack, which is the reason we want to remember this, because you can actually make Herta attack a lot if you really play your cards correctly, and if you buff certain things correctly, she'll be doing a lot of follow-up damage. But we'll get to that as we go. Her technique is just like Dan Heng's. You just increase Herta's attack by 40% for 3 turns in the next battle. Pretty standard. That's that. Going on to her traces, a bit more passive stuff. The damage boost effect on Herta's skill on enemies with high HP increases by an additional 25%. So this 20% bonus here is increased by 25. So I believe it should go up to 45, or it could be 25 of 20, which is like some amount of percentage. I can't do the math. I believe that's what, 5%. So it could go up to 25 or 45. I'm not exactly sure, but wording is not my particularly favorite thing in these abilities. But I would assume that it increases it up to 45, as it still just makes the character only an opener, nothing too crazy. And also 45 would be kind of cool. Puppet, her second trace, Herta's resistance to crowd control debuffs increased by 35%, just a bit of resistance. Freeze, third one, Herta's ultimate damage deals 20% more damage to frozen enemies, and it's the reason you're going to want to be freezing enemies with this character. Now, how do you freeze an enemy? Well, if you're coming from games like Genshin and Honkai, freezing does not work the same way that it does in these games. Freezing in Honkai works with the status trauma application, and in Genshin it works like a reaction between Hydro and Cryo. That's not how it works here. In HSR, to freeze an enemy, you need to weakness break them with ice, essentially. So each character or each enemy has a white shield on them, and you need to status break them or weakness break them with ice attacks to freeze them. So it's a bit situational, and really only going to be super effective against ice weak characters. You won't be really using this, or this getting value out of this trace against anything other than ice characters, or in very, very rare situations. So bear that in mind. That's how you freeze enemies. And so far, the character standalone is really good. By the standards of what we've witnessed for the past 3 characters, this character is great. Our first Erudition character. A lot of AoE, a lot of situational damage boosting, and a lot of potential with the follow-up, which I know of, and I'm soon to tell you guys that the follow-up mechanic can be quite good. And that's that. The character is just an AoE damage dealer. AoE damage dealers aren't going to obviously be doing as high damage as single target singularly, but they're going to be clearing out areas very efficiently. And obviously, there's multiple game modes in HSR where you'll need one character over the other. So Herta so far has been a good addition to the roster. But Eidolons heavily enhance it. So if the enemy's HP is at 50%, which is the first Eidolon, I should preface that, right? If the enemy's HP is at 50% of their max or less, Herta's basic attack deals additional ice damage equal to 20% of Herta's attack. Kind of a weak one in my opinion for the start, mainly because it kind of contradicts the opener here, right? So your skill is the opener. You want to be opening with your skill as it deals higher damage to higher HP enemies, but then you have her first Eidolon, which makes her basic attack an execute ability, or it kind of goes along the lines of execute, which is kind of interesting, but it's still weak. Her second Eidolon though is a bit of a strong one if it scales infinitely. Herta's crit rate, increases by 3% every time her talent triggers. What's her talent? Well, it's that follow-up attack, right? It's that follow-up attack, which is pretty crazy. Now, this may have an internal stack count, a maximum stack internally that doesn't say. This may be a turn-based duration. I'm not exactly sure, but if this is infinite, this could make Herta a very strong character in multi-wave fights, essentially. If a fight goes for about 4 waves, 3 waves, 5 waves, however many waves, if you can trigger Herta's talent, I'm muttering my words here, if you can trigger her talent many times within the first 1 to 2 waves, and then pretty much have her at maximum crit rate, you're winning, essentially. And if you combo that with her fourth Eidolon, which you can read on the screen if you read ahead a bit, it could be quite crazy, but that's her second Eidolon, very good. Her third Eidolon, skill +2, as well as basic +1, which is standard. Herta's Eidolon 4, Herta's damage increases by 10% when her talent is triggered. So you get a crit rate increase and a 10% damage increase every time you trigger her talent. And if these things scale infinitely, or rather go infinitely stack-wise, that could be good. Or it could also just be a standalone 1 buff thing. You never know with these things. It doesn't specify. I believe it to be a single stack. You get 1 stack and that's it. No more stacks. But I also don't doubt that they may add a few stacks. So like maybe 3 stacks in total. Who knows? But assume right now that it is just 1 stack, so you trigger her talent, and you get 1 stack of both of these things, which still is quite good. Crit rate and damage is overall great. Eidolon 5, ultimate +2, as well as talent +2, and then Eidolon 6, after using Herta's ultimate, her attack is increased by 25% for 1 turn. 25% damage to her ultimate. Her ultimate already deals a lot of damage. It's quite standard. This is what I expect from an AoE character, and obviously a 4-star character at that. This is what I expect. I expect a lot more in-depth from the 5 stars, which obviously I haven't read yet. I like to read them one at a time, so I'm understanding things as a person would be watching these videos, essentially. And this is quite standard for what I'd expect from a 4-star AoE character. They are selfish in terms of DPS. They buff themselves, and they only do things that they do, and it's all AoE damage. It's all based on AoE damage. But yes, as per usual, a character's whole kit doesn't stop at their character. It stops at the light cone. Not really, the relics, but light cones are halfway there. So 3-star light cone, both of them are fine if you really want to. The damage one is obviously going to be data bank. It gives your ultimate a lot of damage percentage, whilst passkey gives you energy regeneration after you use a skill, which you can maybe combo a lot if you use your skill often. That's that really. Databank damage, passkey for utility. 4 stars. It's a lot more up and down, I guess, here, because you got 4 options, but Herta's signature one will be her best in slot here for just easiness of equipment. Increases damage dealt by the wearer's follow-up attack. Remember that, follow-up attack damage increase, which only Erudition characters have, from what I've noticed of all of these light cones. Increase the damage, obviously, follow-up attack, and then if current HP of the target is below 50% of their max HP, increase the damage of the follow-up attack by an extra a certain amount. So Herta's unique and her specific light cone has her deal increased follow-up attack damage, which is... I'm not sure if that's going to be her main role. But if you do use this character, it's going to be a pretty crucial part about it if you do have her idle on 4, obviously. But the other options aren't terrible. So with Make the World Clamor, where regenerates more energy immediately upon entering battle and increases their ultimate damage. So essentially, you'll be able to use your ultimate almost at the start of every battle every single time, which is good, I guess, if you really like that. It's not a bad choice, but not my personal favorite. You have the Seriousness of Breakfast, which is my personal favorite, as it buffs the character universally, so increases the wearer's damage by a certain percentage, and then for every defeated enemy, the wearer's attack increases by a further percent, stacking up to 4 times. I'm a personal fan of universally buffing a character in certain ways instead of very niche buffing ways, just because it's a lot easier to do, and sometimes my brain doesn't function quite properly, so I need a bit of a help here and there, as you may tell. So this one's a personal favorite. Also, Pom Pom is in the picture, so overall win. And then the last one is Today's Another Peaceful Day. After a new comment, increases the wearer's damage based on their max energy. Damage increases by a certain percentage per point of energy, up to 160 energy. I probably wouldn't recommend this one either. So it's pretty much between Herta's signature one or the Seriousness of Breakfast. Those are the only 2 viable options here. But again, like always, if you're a personal favorite person of Herta, if you love her to death, best character in the world, honestly, your go-to gal, then obviously a 5-star is going to be your option here. And there really is only one option that I'm going to recommend, and it is Before Dawn. This one seems to be the main DPS light code for any Erudition character. Night on the Milky Way is a bit of an interesting one, so we'll cover this one first. So for every enemy on the field, increase the wearer's attack by a certain percentage, up to 5 times, so you can get a very chunky damage bonus if there are 5 enemies on the field, which is a bit of the problem here. So you have to have 5 enemies on the field. Once you kill one, I believe you would lose 1 stack. So you lose a bit of efficiency as the fight goes on, which you never really want to do. But there's a second part. When an enemy is afflicted with weakness break, the wearer's damage increases by a further percentage for 1 turn. It's very situational. It's very diminishing in return the longer the fight goes on. Obviously, if you're just using Erudition characters, you would be killing them all at the same time because you're hitting every character with the same numbers. But still, you lose value as the fight goes on, compared to the other one, Before Dawn, which it just does 2 things, which is a flat number, which is crazy. So increase the wearer's crit damage by a flat percentage. Okay. And then increase the wearer's skill and ultimate damage by a flat percentage. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. After the wearer uses their skill or ultimate, they gain a Somnus Corpus. Upon triggering a follow-up attack, the Somnus Corpus will be consumed and the follow-up attack damage is increased by a further percent. There is no drawbacks to this. You lose nothing, which is kind of the part that astounds me with the raw power from this one, as it's crit damage, universal damage boosting, as well as a very specific thing to Erudition characters, which is the follow-up attack. Obviously, it's going to be best in slot for the character that it is for, obviously. We all know that. But still, if you're going to run an Erudition character and you have this, run this. Before Dawn is going to be your best pick. Now, in the previous videos, I've always recommended the signature one for the character. So I would recommend the Birth of the Self. But this one is just so strong that if you do have this, and you don't have this character, and you do happen to have Herta, run Before Dawn. You'd be a fool not to run Before Dawn. So run Before Dawn on Herta if you don't have this motherfucker. That's that. Now that we've gotten light cones out of the way, relics. Now relics are quite simple. You got a few things to think about. Ice damage, ultimate damage. Boom, you gotta run Hunter of the Glacial Forest. It's relic set. 2 set is 10% ice damage. 4 set, ultimate. After using the ultimate, increase your crit damage by 25% for 2 turns. So it's not just your ultimate damage, but it's actually your crit damage. So it's a universal buff after you cast your ultimate, which then you can subsequently use your follow-up attack, which is going to boost your damage overall, right? So run 4 set of this right here, Hunter of Glacial Forest, and then you're probably going to want to come up here, Planetary Ornament, and you're going to want to run, which one was it now? The Inner Salsoto, the 2 set, which is the only 2 set, increases your crit rate by a flat 8%, so further boosting your crit rate, making you crit more. And then when the wearer's current crit rate reaches 50% or higher, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up attack damage increases by 15. That's pretty much everything that Mrs. Herta does, so you may as well just do it. So that is going to be your relic sets. This character is actually the most simple I've ever heard of. Hunter of the Glacial Forest, ice damage and crit damage, and then, not that tab, whoops, planetary area, and you're going to go for inert Salsodo, crit rate, and then also ultimate and follow-up attack boost. It's as simple as that. The character is as simple as a book called Green Eggs and Ham. Herta, that's that really. An AoE damage dealer. I didn't think it was going to be this simple. I thought there was going to be a little bit more intricacies, but that's been Herta, guys. Like the video if you enjoyed and if you learned something, and have a great day. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye.